for Dave Franco, our speaker, everyone. So I look forward to being in person with each of you, but right now I'm pretty excited to introduce to our club, Dave Franco. He's going to show us how to utilize the remarkable staying power of each of our stories. Dave is a former New York City advertising copywriter who is now a feature stories writer and ghostwriter. He discovered the power of stories to create lasting impressions in the mind of your audience, and he is going to show us how to expand on every way that we think on how we present ourselves in business and in person. Dave, I'm turning the floor over to you. The microphone and the screen are yours. Rancho Santa Fe Rotary, please welcome Dave.
Oh, you're muted, Dave. You're still muted.
Yes.
Now we hear you. There you go.
So sorry about that. I don't know how I managed that. Well, hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I hope I don't disappoint Malcolm. Malcolm wanted me to hear me talking about ghostwriting, which I am a ghostwriter, but I didn't actually plan that. Maybe I'll touch on something that might be of interest to him. But I am a stories writer. I write people's books who want to get on the circuit, and oftentimes people who have businesses want to be an author but don't really want to write a book. And they come to a person like me who writes their books, and it adds credibility to their business and that kind of thing to have books. And I also write legacy books for people who want to leave private issue books to their families and stuff like that. But I wasn't always a stories writer. I was an ad copywriter for many years. And I was in New York City, and I was doing that whole thing, writing TV commercials for the big agencies back there. And then I came out to California, and I was asked to write a story by this one organization. And I said, oh, well, okay, I'll give that a try, you know, and I wrote the story, and they posted it online. And what happened next was something that rather changed my life, in that the emotional letting that followed storytelling was something I had never experienced before. There was people who cried by the story I wrote. People came from all around the world to read this doggone story. And there were tears that followed storytelling, and it was really a shocker to me. It turned out that I ended up just writing stories. Like the company I was with said, okay, don't do our marketing writing anymore. If this is what it takes to get people on our website, just write stories, because people are coming. So I ended up writing a lot of stories. So anyways, and it was just a remarkable time of success. Not that I was making money, it's just that things were just really happening, and it was a big change for me. And so I was at this one event one afternoon, there were, I was at a big table, and there were people on my left who I knew and people on my right who I did not know, sitting next to this woman, and she was talking in that direction. I was talking in this direction. Ultimately, she stopped me and she said, what do you do? And I told her what I did, that I wrote these stories. And as soon as I said I wrote these stories, she started crying. And I initially thought that I had said something wrong, or I was like, you know, are you okay? What happened? And she said, you're the one who wrote the story about the man who had the son who had a heroin addiction and died and all that kind of. I said, yes, I did. She said, well, my husband's dealing with the same thing. And she went on and on. But the amazing thing is that I had written that story about 2 months prior, and she had read it about 2 months prior. And I learned that day that story stayed underneath the surface, and it was hot to the touch for this woman. I had just mentioned that I wrote it. We did not go over it. She did not have it handy to read. She just simply remembered about it, and it burst her into tears. I was just shocked by that. And I thought to myself, I've got to find out exactly what's going on with this. If I'm writing stories for a living, why do they mean so much to people? So I stopped for a bit and I did some research, and here's what I found out. The human mind and a story are the perfect match. We have to have stories. We live our lives by stories. We are the perfect receivers and givers of stories. We teach our kids through stories. We make sense of our lives through stories. Stories mean so much to us that our minds tell us stories in the middle of the night. as if it's working something out in our brains, and it is, and in our emotions. I once saw a scan of a brain while it was watching, reading, listening to a story. And the entire right side of the brain had lit up. All the electricity was going through the right side of the brain. It was fully engaged. On the right side of the brain are things like poetry and lyrics and creativity and abandon and color and music. All these things over here where there's a lot of passion going on. On the left side are things we need, like organization and language and sorting and, you know, numbers and things like that over here. But on the right side is where there's a lot of passion that happens. Quick story. One morning I was at a meeting where I hadn't been invited to this network group. And I like those things. So I went, you know, and now this particular one, they gave 3 people an opportunity to stand up and say a little something about themselves. So here's how it went. So this one guy gets up, you know, he says, "Hi, I'm Jim with Jim's Gym. Hey, come on in right now. You got to see our place. We've got you know, all the rowers, and we got the machines, and we got the weights, and we got classes till 12, and it looks really beautiful in there. We got people who can help you. We're going to help you with your weight, get it down, get you in shape. We got a new showers, and everything's beautiful. You got to come and see it. Come see me now, and I'll give you 10% off on your membership. And I'd love to show you around, and it's really great. And thanks very much. My name's Jim with Jim's Gym. See you soon. Thank you." He sat down, light applause. Next guy stand up and said, "Hi, I'm John with ABC Solar. You know, we'll get in and get out. We're quick. We'll put those things up on your roof. You'll never know we're there. We're clean. We're going to get you off the grid. We're going to lower your electric bill. And you're just going to love your experience with us. And you're going to just be so glad you did. So come and see me, and I'll give you a couple of percentages off," or whatever he said, you know, 10% off. "And just come see me today. And I'm John with ABC Solar." And he sat down, light applause. And a woman got up, very demure, soft-spoken, rather small. She said, "Hi, my name is Sharon. I was 6 years old when my mom and dad came running down the hall and grabbed me and my sister and pulled us out to the front of our street, where we watched our house burn down. And it was devastating. Soon after, my dad pulled up a trailer onto our lot, and we lived there. And I remember this man came up to the house, and my dad went out in front and met him and talked with him. And he shook his hand when he left. And I said, "Who was that, Daddy?" And he said, "That was our insurance agent, and he's going to get us our house back." Well, sure enough, in time, men showed up on our lot. There was a lot of hammering and sawing and a lot of sound and noise, and things were going up, and the house was being built. And sure enough, 3 months later, the house was done, and it was time to move in, and it was a glorious day. It was the most exciting day of my life. We moved all our stuff in. House was better than before, and it was just so exciting that we had our house back. And that same man that came before, came again. And my dad met him, talked with him, shook his hand. This time he gave him a hug. And I thought to myself, when I get older, I'm going to be an insurance agent. So my name is Sharon. And if you want somebody who really cares, an insurance agent who really cares, I hope you'll give me a call. And she sat down. And the place erupted into applause, with whoops and whoops and whoos and all kinds of things. Everybody figured out, everybody knew we had just been through a little experience that meant something to each of us. We didn't have somebody just reading off a list of things. It was somebody who took us into her world and into an experience. And I don't think any of us there would ever forget how it meant to be with her and listen to that story. So much so that the truth about the whole matter is, I don't remember what those 2 guys said at all. I had to make it up just to have them be a part of this story. I remembered her, and I imagine those people do too. And I imagine it's possible you will still remember what it was that Sharon went through to become an insurance agent, and how much she cared and why she cared. Point number 1 is that the tentacles of a story reach really, really deep. If you want to own real estate in someone's brain, tell them a story. I was on my way home from work one day. I got off the subway in New York City. I was on my way home, and I walked down a street that I hadn't before. and it came across a guitar store. I love guitars. I play the guitar. I think they're all really cool. It's amazing though. You go to guitar stores and they all kind of basically are the same from thing to thing, you know, acoustic guitars. But I opened the doors that day and I saw this one guitar. It was a wine-colored guitar, a small little dark wine, and with no ornateness at all. There was no inlay, there was no abalone, there was no gold, there was no silver. He just left it alone, as if this guitar is beautiful, I'm leaving it alone. And I was like, wow, that is the most beautiful guitar I think I've ever seen. And it's just so simple, you know? And I was looking at it, and there was a price tag hanging from it. And I thought, I'm not gonna turn it around to see what the price is because I can't afford it. If it costs 25 bucks, I can't afford it. My wife and I were dead broke. We just moved to the city. So it wasn't going to do me any good to turn the price tag over and look at the price tag. It was, you know, there was no way I was going to get it. I can't get it. She'd kill me. So I didn't do that. But as I was standing there looking at it, there's a guy who worked there, and he said, beautiful, right? I said, yes, it is. That is so beautiful. He goes, yeah, it's my favorite guitar in the entire place. I said, that is incredible. He goes, you know about it? Favia guitar? I said, no, I've never heard of that guitar. He goes, yeah. He goes, it was a guitar maker in Spain generations ago in Spain. And he made guitars and handed them down the business to his sons and his grandsons. And then the very final grandson, who made the guitars in Spain, decided he was going to come to Brooklyn and try it here. So he came to Brooklyn, tried it. It was in the 50s. So it was tough going because in the 50s was all the electric guitar craze. And in the 60s, so he made a go of it, and he didn't quite work out, closed the shop like around 1970 or so. He said, but anyways, he made beautiful guitars. And that's a 61. I thought, that's a 61? I'm a 61. And he's from Spain. My family's from Spain. You know, I was connecting. And suddenly that price tag's like, oh no. I gotta see how much this thing costs, you know? And I reached up thinking this is a mistake, you know, and I turned that thing over, 500 bucks. Ugh, there's no way I could get it for 500 bucks, but the story, you know? So on that day, when I left that guitar store that day with my Favia guitar in my hand, which I have here.
Yay.
I knew something had happened because I was somebody who walked in that store with no ability, no interest, no desire, nothing to get a guitar. And suddenly there I was walking down the street with my guitar and $500 on that plastic. And I have it today. The story grabbed me, you know, there was nothing I could do. I mean, there was nothing I could do, but it grabbed my heart and soul so deeply that it made me do something that I absolutely should not have ever done. There was this guy who had this website, or this, he did this thing, and I don't know if he did it for a joke, or if he did it to be mean, or if he did it to prove a point, but what he did was he put out on eBay these items that he was selling and people were making bids on, and he included a story with them. Just these simple little items. And he ultimately included that he sold them for like $27, $35, $40. Those were the ultimate bid. You know, and there was a pot, and it it had like a story attached, and it was this pot that was found in front of this lady's house, and it was by her lake that was right in front of her house, and it was in the mud, and it was cleaned off, and it was probably 200 years old or whatever it was, you know. And he had all these stories attached to these things and how much they were when they sold. And then later he put up what it was that he bought them for at a garage sale. He bought them all for $1 or less. In other words, they had no value, but when people saw that there was a story attached, all of the value went through the roof, and people were paying 500 times the amount that it was really worth just to get the story. Point number 2 is that a story adds value. When you are making your presentation, when you're leaving your leaflets, your pamphlets, wherever it is that you have your communication, your marketing. I'm not a person who says that you should lead with a story, that everything should be about a story. I'm saying that I really think that you should consider storytelling as a part of your marketing mix, because if you really want to get to someone's brain and really own a piece of real estate in the brain and increase the value of everything that you offer, consider a story. It is a foolproof way to make your way in. Now, here is how a story, the trajectory of a story that you can follow. A story that you can bring from your life or your business that is something that goes from small to large, an idea to a product, something that was chaotic that you made into control. It moves from problem to solution. It's this transformation where something goes from something to something else, you know, but it has trouble. There's trouble that gets in the way, and you find a way to get around or through or under or whatever. But that is the trajectory. It even works with people who, I didn't have a career, I didn't know what to do. I graduated from college, I had no idea what to do with my degree, but then I had an idea. And I followed this idea, and people came against it, and it wasn't going to work, and I didn't have the money, whatever it was, but I made it through. All that kind of stuff, people just like glom onto. We connect to stories because we are all in the middle of our own story, and we want to see how you got it done. So we're going to connect, we're going to care, and we're going to remember. I want to leave you with this. There is a, if you have any concern as to like, well, I really don't get how the story works. You know, what's the best kind of story? This is a perfect template for a story. I found a video of a guy named, or his company, his business called J. Allen Pipes. Just a J, and then Allen, A-L-A-N, Pipes. And on his website, on his channel on YouTube, he's got two videos. One is called An Artisan Discovered, and one is called The Birth of a Pipe. And he starts off these videos with a crude piece of wood, and he draws on them, and he starts using his machinery that sometimes inflict much damage on his piece of wood and break it and ruin it and all kinds of stuff. It becomes its trouble, right? But in the process, he makes these pieces of crude wood into the most beautiful pipes you have ever seen. They are spectacular. You cannot believe the color and the detail and the creativity with little die cuts and the whole thing. It is spectacular. And you see the transformation, which is what we're really all about. What we'd like is transformation, you know, from the rugged to the spectacular. If you look at those videos, The Birth of a Pipe and An Artisan Discovered, you'll get the feeling. And you think to yourself, okay, I'll use that to be my story to transform in that way. Last thing, I watched this one woman, these two women had a story, at a website. They had this little store, and they had a website. I said, "Oh, I like your business." You know, they said, "Well, go onto our website." Sure, okay. So I looked on the website, and on the website was a video, and it said, "Our story." I went, "All right, love it." Click on the story, and it said, "Hi, we're going to tell you the story of our company. The story is all of our employees are women." And so they talked to the different women about and I thought that was a nice video, but it wasn't a story. If you really wanted to capture us, you got to go through that process of telling the story of something small to something big, a goal met with trouble in between. I think that's all the time I have. I think I took up 20 minutes of your time, but that's all I have to tell you, unless Malcolm wanted to ask me questions about ghostwriting. But if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me now.
I have a question. Dave, where can we find your writings? Where can we read your writings?
I have a website where I write, where I have my legacy work. It's Linkbook Legacies, plural, linkbooklegacies.com. And that is my website for all the legacy writing for people who want to leave stories for their families and for their heirs. Oftentimes people who have businesses and successful businesses want to tell their story, and because they want to leave their business to their family, and they oftentimes the family isn't prepared for it. So they need to leave them all their virtues, and here's what we learned, and here's how you can do it. Because I found out that businesses usually don't make it past the third generation beyond the original owner. So it's a really good idea to tell those stories and get them to the family so they can kind of keep it alive. So that's that. And then I also, one of the books that has done the best that I've written is called Mine Until. I actually have a copy right here. Mine Until, it's probably backwards, right? And it's a book about a woman named Jessica Yaffa. You'll find it under her name, Jessica Yaffa, Y-A-F-F-A. And it's a harsh book. It ends gloriously, but it is harsh, about a woman who endured domestic violence. But if you'd like to read any of my work, oh, and on my website, the Link Book Legacies, there's also samples there you can read through if you want to see how I write, my style, and that kind of thing.
Dave, I am absolutely inspired by you, your energy, who you are. I'm sure everyone feels this way. I'm blown away by you today, and I have epiphanies and the way you lean into the story and the camera. And I realize that a lot of us tell stories and we hold back for some social behavior, or so what you've shown me today is when you have a story, you got to go for it, man. You got to just lean in like childlike and just go for it. I mean, I have absolutely loved listening to you. Absolutely loved listening to this.
Who is talking?
Don Meredith.
Don, what a super astute thing to say, because I have learned that myself. I am not usually a gregarious person or whatever. I have found that stories don't miss. Like if you're at a party or whatever and you decide to tell a story, if you tell it with enthusiasm and a little bit of an ability that goes outside yourself and your own personality, people are along for the ride. I promise you that nobody looks and says, oh, look at her or look at him or what's he doing or whatever. If you hit the right notes, which is to tell that transformation, it does not miss. You will capture people. They will remember you. They will, root for you. That is exactly right, Don. If you stand on in and you just step up to the moment that a story is important, and I'm going to embody this thing to communicate to these people, you will not miss. You're absolutely right.
From this, let's be more like Dave Franco from now on.
Dave, I have a question.
Yeah.
May I? Dave, my name is Catherine.
Oh, I see you, Catherine.
And I find I consider myself gregarious.
Mm-hmm.
People don't forget me, but I'm not a storyteller. I'm a list teller. I don't weave it. Is that a talent that can be developed?
When you say you're a list teller,
I'm black and white.
Oh,
I get the point.
You're very black and white. When yes, I think that it can be developed, and here's why. If you sit at a party, or if you listen to somebody at a keynote speaker or what have you, they always start with a problem, right? There's no one who talks about a story who went from good to good. It's always from this was the problem, and it got good. That I think that is the only trajectory. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the crude block of wood. We're all starting with a block of wood. Even when a guy, you're with family and they're telling a story and someone sits down and they tell you a story, they launch in a story, I guarantee you, listen for it. It's going to be, I went to the store and I had this dude tell me, suddenly there was a problem and he was going to get around. Everybody's story starts with a problem, and that's how you get it off the ground and it takes flight, is through a problem and how you work through the problem. It doesn't have to have a great ending, but you got to work through the problem, and that's the process everybody wants to hear. So if you can just sort of take your black and white, your list, and you add on a problem and give us a little bit of what it took to get past the problem, and the person who was a difficult guy, or the day that didn't go good, or the tire that went flat, you're in. And I think that's a good question. Yes, it can be learned.
Thank you.
Dave, I got a question.
Yeah.
I'm Patrick Galvin, and I'm in real estate in Rancho Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
And folks love my accent, and I'm just trying to understand what are the charges for you to help us, or me, to be better in real estate.
What do I charge?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I would be happy to chat with you offline and talk to you more about what it is you're really kind of honing in on. It would probably be a long conversation to get to what that could be. I certainly
Would that be per minute?
Would that be per minute? Did you say? Negotiate.
I put you on the spot now. Sorry.
I'd be happy to talk to you. You can contact me at Dave R. Franco, Franco, Dave R. Franco, got to get that R in there, at gmail.com. You can email me and say something about the RSF Rotary, because I flip through them rather quick and sometimes I kill them too quickly. So, and I'll notice you and I'll give you a call back, but I'd be happy to talk to you about whatever needs you have.
Patrick,
Yeah,
have him teach you how to tell stories about each house you're selling. That always gets him.
Oh, thank you, Gerard. Maybe you should take this podium.
Yes, you can always talk to the people whose homes you're selling and ask for stories. There's probably a ton there, a ton.
In general, Dave, how do you get paid for what you do? Maybe that's the question I should have asked.
I write people's books, and they pay me. Oftentimes, I negotiate a per chapter. You know, if we can subdivide someone's life or whatever they want to tell into 20 things or whatever, it could be 12 or 11 or whatever. But I'll attach a price to a chapter, and that way they can kind of be in control of how much they want to tell, and they can pay me that way. Books are expensive because they take a long time. You know, sometimes I've written books, like the book I mentioned to you, Mine Until, that was 14 months. It's a lot of work and a lot of interview time. So, and unless you just want to pay me a lump sum or whatever, but I try to send people toward the chapter price rate.
Okay.
So they can stay in control. Because when I tell you how long it takes me and what that would ultimately be, it's like people go, oh, too much. You know, it's a lot. It can be a lot. It's expensive.
Dave, have you ever considered running as a politician?
I have never considered that.
Because you haven't answered any of the questions.
I didn't quite hear that, but I would not be. I will not be running. You'll not see my face anywhere on a bus sign anywhere anytime soon.
Dave, I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, this is Paulette. For about 5 or so years, my husband and I owned a magazine in Rancho Santa Fe, and and the stories were to cover the story, tell the stories of the people who live there. And it was fantastic because, and what I want to say to all my Rotarian friends here is that I found people were like, oh, you don't want to interview me. I don't have anything important to say. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And what I found was that everybody has a story, and the story is important to the fabric of your community. It's important to the fabric of your family. It's important to the fabric of every part of your life. And so if there's anybody who has a story to tell about their family, like for instance, I still have an aunt who's alive, my grandmother's sister, she's in her 90s, and she's a first generation American. My great grandparents immigrated over at the turn of the century. I grew up with my great grandparents. I knew them all, and I have pictures and all these kinds of things. And so my question is, do you help tell family stories like that?
Oh yes, that is what my legacy, my link book.
So that's what that is. Okay.
That is what that is. You know, it's interesting that you say that, Paulette. I initially, when I started the business, it was interesting. I started it because a friend was in he called me after having just walked through a cemetery visiting his grandmother the grave. And he was very sad. And I said, I know you miss your grandmother. What are you sad about? He goes, it's really not so much my grandmother. He goes, I looked through all of the cemetery, the headstones, and I realized that everybody's stories of all those people, they died with them.
Yeah.
All those stories, all that history and everything, all those experiences of these people coming to America and all that, they all died with them. And I thought, that is fascinating. I think I want to tell people's stories. And what I thought initially was that I was going to sort of market myself to older folks who would want to tell their stories. It's really not the case. It's usually the kids of the older folks who want to pool their money together and say, my grandparents and my kids don't know each other. And we need to spread that and learn about each other so my kids can have that in their background to take with them as they go forward and leave that for their kids, you know, that kind of thing. So that's really where most of my business comes from are the kids buying for their parents. It's important. You're right. It means something to the community and to all of us to have those stories still stay alive.
Yeah, history is important.
You
Well,
know,
it
this is
it's
Heather,
1 o'clock,
and I'm going
Robin, or
to
whoever.
interrupt.
It's 1 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah, so we have to, anyone can stay on to ask Dave questions after the meeting, but I wanted you to know, Dave, that we definitely appreciated hearing a little bit about your business, although we didn't hear about really your story. But maybe in future times, we'll have occasion to meet or hear about it. Any interested Rotarians, I want you to be able to go to Dave's website. It is linkbooklegacies.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
I think it'll tell us a little bit more about how we could utilize Dave to help us in our lives, to help our children remember us, or to help enhance our own legacies by hearing about our grandparents before we've passed away. Each of us are the only ones that remember what needs to be passed on. We're the only ones that know our specific stories. So Dave, thank you so much for being with us. Please